Good morning, and good morning again. Happy Saturday to you. Listen, I'm just delighted to be able to be found on the wake up list one more time on a Saturday. If I feel and seem like I'm excited, it's because somebody had plans to get up this morning and it was not the master's will. And so, yes, I am excited. Welcome to our Facebook family. Those of you joining by way of Facebook Live today, thank you for being so faithful and diligent. Also, want to give a shout out to those on our YouTube list today. Thank you for joining in by way of YouTube as well. You all have been very faithful and diligent as well. We certainly want to thank you this morning. Happy Saturday. It is in the month of November of 2022. We're just thankful to be alive. I want to ask you to come on in this morning. And boy, we got 60 minutes for you today. We're diving deep down on a topic, church hurt. Listen, I'm excited to get started on today. I want to show you a way to join us. First of all, maybe you have someone that you've been thinking about. You know that they've checked out of church and you said that you wanted to at least bless them. And so let's talk real quickly about how you can join our sessions. It's 60 minutes straight, honest, real talk conversation. You can join us by way of Facebook Live. You see the handle there, Dr. K.L. Williams Ministry. Also, you can join us by way of YouTube, Dr. K.L. Williams Space Ministry. And listen, when you go to the YouTube, you can also find any of our previous recorded sessions, and we're happy about that. You can benefit from any of the previous series that we've been able to be honored to bring before you today. And also in the bottom left-hand corner is a way that you can talk directly to us, bit.ly/Real Talk Your Voice. What it does is allow you to send us information if you have other topics or want some more information around a particular area. It gives us a way for you and I to have a conversation. Listen. I'm ready to get started. This session is every Saturday for 60 minutes, addressing life issues, straight, honest, transparent conversation. But we never leave without trying to give you some practical tools. And we've got some of those for you today as well. So let's get started. I want to ask you to do me a quick housekeeping whenever you join. If you'll just send a quick good morning, amen, hello, something, let me know that you're in the room today. Come on out in the weeds and just give us a little check-in. Oh, it will make us feel good. And we'll give you a shout out as well as you check in with us on today. So I'm just thankful for today. Listen, we've been dealing with this topic, church hurt. Listen, I don't know many people. If you've done any church work at all, listen, somewhere, somehow, sooner or later, you're going to get on this journey called church hurt. And so that's what we want to do today is give you some very practical tools. I cannot wait to get started today. Again, want to ask you to hit that share button and you can bless somebody else today and let them know that there is hope even in a hopeless situation around church hurt. So let's get started today. I'm going to ask us to put up our PowerPoint today. I have one prepared for you. And, we want to deal with this concept when church hurts. Yes, it is such a thing as church and it hurts. Yes, we're going to talk about that just a little bit. And this thing that we've been trying to deal with, nothing like a church hurt series. You're going to find out that this is very personal to the individual. We're going to ask you to put your microscope on yourself and see maybe is there a reason for you to be feeling like you're feeling or acting and behaving like you're behaving. We're going to give you some practical guides for healing and moving beyond church hurt. My friend, we're not just going to dive down into the hurt, But we're so thankful that there are tools and practical ways for us to move beyond the church hurt. That's right. There's good news on this Saturday morning is that you don't have to stay in the condition that you're in. Tremaine Hawkins said that the potter will put you back together again. I feel good already. Haven't even got started, but I got some good news for somebody that the reality is that whatever you're going through, I got some news for you that the potter wants to put you back together again. All right, let's go on to our next slide. And so if you didn't join us last week or want to give you a quick review, because I think it's important, we're going to keep building on this concept of church hurt. Listen, when church hurts, we discovered this term called ecclesia exitus disease. Yes, it's a disease that's sweeping the country even now. The pandemic has ripped the Band-Aid off of a disease that was undercurrent anyway. This ecclesia exitus disease is basically a Latin term. Good morning, Sister Satcher, all the way from the Raleigh area. God bless you this morning. Listen, the Latin term for church dropout, just think about it for a moment. Everywhere across the globe, people are experiencing this ecclesia exitus disease, that people, many of them use the pandemic as a platform to not attend. But I got to tell you that this disease has been undercurrenting for some time. This disease called church dropout. And there's a reason for it, and we're going to deal into that just a little bit today as well. Next slide, please. So perhaps, maybe, we're speaking directly to you. I'm already on your road this morning, and you're saying that this is something that you've experienced. Maybe you're the one that this broadcast is designed for today. The decision to permanently withdraw from a congregation you had considered at one time your church home. Let me tell you, it's a big decision, and it's one with a lot of heavy and weighty consequences. The symptoms are many, just a few that we talked about: pain, disappointment, and spiritual enemy, which basically is saying that you have this situation where a condition of instability in the church, in your place of worship, instability, which results from a breakdown of standards. Who am I speaking to? Or values, or from a lack of purpose or ideas within that particular congregation. And so, yes, it is possible to go and worship and have worship intermingled with pain. I'm already talking to somebody today. Listen, somebody is worshiping, but you worshiping with disappointment around the very people that you thought would be your place of refuge. And yes, it is possible to go to a house of worship and there is a lack of standards and values and purpose within the building. We're going to deal with that here in just a second. Listen, it's called the spiritual church dropout, ecclesia exitus disease. Next slide, please. And if you think about it, the cause of this ecclesia exitus has been afflicting the Lord's people since the beginning of church history. You say, why? I don't believe that. Yes, I want you to understand something, that you're not in this alone. Yes, the good news is I'm happy today to report to you that you're not the first person to ever experience a church hurt. You're not the first person to ever have to worship with pain or to have to serve God with disappointment. Let me talk to somebody today. It's called church hurt. Now, I need to set the preface right out the gate. We're using this as a model for church hurt. But I want to talk to you that these principles can be applied on many spectrums. For example, not only are there church hurts, there are what we call family hurts. Am I talking good to anybody today that you have some family conflict going on and it's the very thing that you didn't see coming? Or maybe it's what we call occupational hurt. That is on your job. You trying to go to work day in and day out, only to have to deal with pain and disappointment on the job, lack of standards and values. Oh, I'm talking good. Or maybe it's in your community. You're trying to be that community drum major and you have people sitting on the sidelines trying to do harm to you. I know I'm talking good to somebody, but this model of church hurt can be applied in so many other different arenas. Come on in the room. Let me talk to somebody about a relational hurt. Yes, it is something that you can apply to so many areas. But what we want to do is to give you some practical tools. It's a practical guide how to not only acknowledge the hurt, but move beyond it. That's the good news of today. Next slide, please. I'm ready to get started. Now, listen. We talked last time, and you can certainly go back and review this. We gave you many different patriarchs throughout the Bible who were models of church hurt. But I wanted to focus our time a little bit more today on the master model, which would be Jesus, the Messiah. Jesus was sent to save the Jews whose leaders rejected and conspired. Who am I speaking to today? That you were doing nothing but God's work and somebody's sitting around trying to conspire or orchestrate how to bring you down. Let me talk to somebody today. You're not in this by yourself. They orchestrated and plotted Christ's murder in defiance of the spiritual laws and principles that they taught fellow Jews. Let me talk to you today that this is nothing new, but the takeaway is life-changing. Next slide, please. Listen to this. I want to deal with being broken by the church. That it is possible to worship God and be broken by the church. We see here that Jesus is the master example. Jesus was accused of being demon possessed, and he was accused by the church. It's right here in Mark 3:22. Listen what it says. But the teachers of the religious law who had arrived from Jerusalem said, this is what they said, he's possessed by Satan, talking about the Messiah Jesus, the prince of demons. That's where he gets the power to cast out demons. Let me tell you right now, here this man, this Messiah is doing good, and yet you see that there are people who accused him, Jesus, of being demon possessed. Lord have mercy. I'm telling you right now on today that it is possible for you to do good and still experience hurt from the church. Jesus was rejected in his own hometown. Looking at the third bullet point. You find this in Mark 6:3. Listen, they scoff. He's just a carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon, and his sisters live right here among us. They were deeply offended and refused to believe in him. I want to talk to somebody today that don't you be dismayed. Don't be so distraught that you want to give up. You are not the first person to ever strike out to do good. And when you look at this particular example, it came from those that knew him the closest. Do you see? It is possible to experience brokenness by the very community that you're trying to help. Oh, I know I'm talking good to somebody today. Listen, the reality is They tried to let him see that he was just a carpenter. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Good morning, Sister Ethel, all the way from Virginia. Good morning, Sister Denise, all the way in the Jacksonville area. Listen, I come to talk to somebody today to tell you that when you strike out to do good, everybody is not going to give you a pat on the back. And I had to talk to someone just last night and said there used to be a time that they would put you up today and take you back down tomorrow. But this crowd is so ruthless now, they'll put you up today and take you back down the same day. Yes, I come to remind you that it was Jesus' very own. Can you imagine in your own hometown down in Jacksonville? And you go in Jacksonville trying to do God's work, and somebody say, oh, I know him. That boy came from Sandy Run. He ain't about nothing. Listen, they know your family, your friends, your mama, your daddy, your sisters and brothers. What they trying to tell you is you come from stock that is not so good, so we know you can't be good. But can I talk to somebody today that the good news of this gospel is simple, is that even when your hometown don't receive you, it doesn't stop the ultimate destiny. And then look at the next to the last bullet point. Jesus' closest friends. Yes, I had to deal with it. His closest friends even gave him some brokenness. You say, how do you know? Look, we could go on and on and on, but I did want to highlight at least two. You do know that Judas betrayed Christ. It is the ultimate story and the action that sets Jesus' crucifixion in motion. It is when Judas comes and gives him what we now call the kiss of death. Judas, one of the close friends of Jesus, kisses him, and in the same breath, he tells the rulers, the one that I kiss is the betrayer. Lord, have mercy on a Saturday morning. I'm trying to talk to somebody today that sometimes even your closest friends, they sitting back drinking haterade. And the reality is, if you're not real careful, some of your greatest church hurts can come from those closest to you. Yes, come on up, Peter. Peter can now testify that he too was close to Jesus. And you do know, I love preaching this around resurrection, that it was Peter that was sitting around the Last Supper. And Jesus warned those guys that one of you is going to deny me 3 times. And then Peter said, is it me? He told him, listen, you have said, he told him, listen. And it wasn't there long hence thereafter that Peter, just like Jesus told him, denied the man 3 times. Oh, I want to help somebody today. I usually, during that time, I preach this sermon called Preaching Roosters. Yes, when the rooster crowed, it was a reminder to Peter what Jesus had told him would come to pass. When the rooster crowed, let me tell you something. Somebody need to know today that God has predicted some things. And when that rooster crowed, you'll say, you know what? It was just like he said it. But Peter, he redeems himself, as you well know when you look at the story. But don't run past it. Peter gave Christ a break. Yes, it is possible for those closest to you to give you a church hurt. Next slide, please. And so I thought that I would give you a working definition of the word church hurt. Yes. Good morning, Sister Janie. God bless you all the way up in the Maryland area. We're so happy for you to be tuning in. Listen. Church hurt. Let's look at this definition for a moment. Church hurt is defined as emotional or physical pain felt by someone, inflicted by words, actions, or inactions of a person of leadership in a church or any person who represents the church. Now listen, let's unpack that definition for a moment. What we're saying is a person can be working in the Lord's church and experience sometimes emotional pain. Yes, you're not bleeding on the outside, but the pain that they have inflicted has shipwrecked you emotionally. You can't think, you can't process. Listen, you don't even know how to feel. I know I'm talking good to somebody today. The fact that you've been working in the church and then somebody inflicts pain, guess what? By words. Sometimes I've had that happen. I don't know who I'm speaking to today. Is there anybody been in the church and somebody used their words to inflict pain on you? Or their actions. They literally did something with their actions to cause hurt to you. Or the one I also like to talk about, or their inactions. They looked at something that was supposed to be checked and they turned their head and act just like they didn't see nothing. Lord have mercy. I know I'm talking good on a Saturday morning. The reality is that there are so many ways to be hurt in the church. And watch this. It can come from leadership, those who we see and we look up to, the pastor, the preachers, the elders, the deacons, the deaconess, or the church mother. I know I'm talking good. Or it can come from just a regular church member that represents the local church. Let me help you real good. That all of us, when we go to a local assembly, we represent that assembly everywhere we go. Yes, and I want you to understand something, that this thing called church hurt, who the church hurt, it's real and it's very, very much alive. Let's go to the next slide. So I wanted to talk just for a moment on some quick stats. The effects of church hurt. Listen to this. 37%, or 4 out of 10 unchurched people avoid church because of a bad experience. There it is right there. That there are something they experience in the context of church that caused them to say, with their hands up, I want no parts of the church. I'm talking good to somebody today because you got involved, you left a bad situation. I heard a man say, listen, I had problems in the world, and the last thing I wanted to do was come to the church and find the same kind of problems inside the church. Well, I come to tell you, we have a term for that, and it's called church hurt. That there is this community of people who say that they've had a bad experience in this thing called church. And the experience was so bad until they said, I want no parts of the church. Do you even know that there are people who are good, solid people, and they came to the church because they were brought up by their family, their mom or dad or some influencer, put it within them, get involved in the church, and then only to discover that when they got involved in the church, here comes a bad experience. And the experience was so bad until they said, I want no parts of the church. And do you know what? I'm thinking right now, somebody is on the fence even right now as we're speaking. You may be looking at this broadcast today and say, Williams, let me tell you something. You talking about a bad experience. You could go on a whole broadcast on just talking about bad experiences. We're going to talk about a few today, even in our broadcast. But here's the thing. They're real and they're alive. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I did some research, and here are a couple of examples I wanted to lift up around church hurt. You see the image of the young kid, bandages everywhere because of the pain that was inflicted upon him from the church. Here's a single mom whose church promises to stand by her, but they disappear after she gets a divorce. Can I talk to somebody today that, listen, there is such thing as a life after divorce, and so many people in the church are hypocritical. Yes, I said it, and I'll say it again. There's so many people, they have what's called a double standard. They want to hold you to one set of standards, and then they doing something totally different in the Lord's church. Am I talking good to anybody on a Saturday morning? Because the reality is, to the single mother, I want to talk to you today, that you went seeking refuge in the church only for the church to hold a different standard for you than they would for them own selves. Yes, there's a man. He says that he opened up about his struggles with same-sex attractions, thinking that the church was a safe place, only to be shunned thereafter. I want to talk to somebody today that the church should be a safe place. Listen, if there's anywhere you ought to go that you can receive shelter when you wounded, it ought to be in the church. Am I talking good to anybody today? But here's a brother who uses the church as a place to try to deal with some of his internal struggles. And after he makes it known, the very place that's supposed to be the hospital for hurting people turns out and hurts the very person. Yes, there's a young girl. I saw this testimonial. She says that she felt, listen to this, bullied by her church family because of her mom's sexual orientation. Like, I want to talk for a moment about the church being a hospital. It's not a golf club. It's not a social club. We're going to talk about that in just a moment also. But the church is a place to come and seek refuge when you are hurting. Listen, Jesus himself says, I come to seek and to save that which was lost. A man that is well, Jesus says, doesn't need a physician, but the physician is for the one who is sick. I come today to tell you that the church should be a place where we come and get help and not hurt. Oh, I said it and I'm going to say it again. The church is a place where we should come to get help and not to be hurt. Oh, but I come to talk to somebody today that the reality is that in the church, this place of a refuge, we have this problem because people, for example, look at the fourth example. A faithful tither of the church. This isn't a actual live testimony. All of these are extracted from a site that I got where people were talking about their church hurts. I'll keep trying to integrate these because you need to understand there are so many different types of church hurts. Here's a faithful tither of the church who sees a pastor in the Walmart and the pastor doesn't acknowledge who you are. Can I talk real good today? I've been there. I know what it's like to be able to have confidence in a leader. You're faithfully tithing and giving to the church, and then the leader doesn't even know who you are. Let me talk good to somebody today that you want to talk about a place of hurt. Listen, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're giving like you're supposed to give. And then the very people that you have the confidence in, like here's a leader, and the leader doesn't even know who you are. Listen, I could go on and tell you some more about this particular one because I was curious. The reader said that they spoke to the pastor and the pastor never did make the connection. I want to talk good to somebody today But there is a place in this place called church where you can get hurt. My good friend Rich, always good to see you, my good friend. Always, always, always good to see you. God bless you on today. Listen, these are some personal testimonies, and I'm going to keep bringing them before you because I want you to see that there is a long laundry list of ways to be hurt in the church. Next slide, please. So let's deal with this for a moment. When we say hurt in the church, I want to just help somebody today. This word church, we use it, so many different ways. But it's actually a Greek term. It comes from the word ecclesia, ecclesia. This word ecclesia, some say ecclesia, whichever way you like to enunciate it. But it's a Greek term, which means church or a meeting house. And I want you to know that it shows up 109 times referenced in the New Testament. Church. You need to know that the church is a called out group of people, a group of people set apart for the service of God. Now, you need to be careful because in that called out group is what we call a mixed multitude. We're going to deal with that in just a second because what we are finding is people are calling the church in ways that the church was not designed to be called. Let me just tell you that the church is not a social club where only a select group of people are allowed to attend, or that you can't get help unless your zip code falls within the parameters of the zip code that we serve. Let me talk to somebody today that the church is a called out group of people set apart for one word, the service of God. Yep, there it is right there. And that what we have going on is so many times people are throwing up these buildings and then placing the word church on them. But I got some news for you today. This is straight, real, honest talk. Every building with a cross on it is not God's sanction. Can I talk to somebody today? Yes, I said it. This is a real coaching series that every building that puts a cross on it is not sanctioned by God, because the reality is it's all about the service. How can you say you're God's house and you're excluding his people? I'm going to talk real good today to somebody because there are many people that are putting this thing. I got hurt in the church. No, I want to first get you to examine the word church. It is a Greek term which means a called out group of people. Let's go a little bit further today. Next slide. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tight, but I'm going to have to go through there. Exactly right. Because what I have found is that there is this notion that when people get hurt in the church, there comes this ideology that says, I hate the church, but I love God. Let me tell you, my friend, we're gonna have to dial that one back. Yes, you say I hate the church. This First Baptist, I hate First Baptist, and I'm not going to First Baptist no more, but I love God. My friend, I want to talk with you just for a moment today. That the church I just showed you is ecclesia. It is a called out group of people set apart for the service of God. I've heard people say, I hate church, but I love God. And I want to help somebody today because you're placing a roadblock in your blessings. Why, Williams? Because of this right here. The church belongs to God. There it is. I said it and I'll stand on it. The church belongs to God. And you cannot say that you hate the church but love God. I know you're hurt. I know you're wounded. And I know you feel like right in the church, y'all. Matter of fact, when you look at the picture to the right, I know somebody's feeling just like the picture that says, I'm all churched out. Williams, I don't want nothing else to do with the church. And I want to talk with you today in this broadcast around there's nothing like a church hurt. And to tell you that the church belongs to God. Jesus is the head of the church. When you look in Ephesians 5, it tells you Christ, which is the head of the church. Listen, 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 my friend. You cannot say that you hate the church and love God. It's an oxymoron. I said it, and I'll say it again if I need to. Jesus gave his life for the church. He died for the church, my friend. And you cannot say that you hate the church. And then, yes, I want you to see the last bullet point. Jesus loves the church. And the best news of the gospel is that he's going to return for the church. For I'm coming back for a church without spot or wrinkle or any such blemish. So says the word of God. Listen, there's somebody today that's saying, Williams, I'm all churched out. But I want to talk good to you today. And I want to ask and plead with you. Don't give up on the church. There's some people in the building. But I want to tell you something, that the church belongs to God. There is a called out group of people set apart for the service of God. And I want to ask you today not to give up on the church. Oh, God bless you, my sister Joyce, all the way from the Snow Hill area. I love you so good this morning. Your mom, just, oh, what a blessing it was for her. She kept us in the church. I thank you so much. Just Ella Mae Jones. I got to call her name today. Yes, I do. Listen, she inspired us to stay in the church. And I remember so many days speaking to Mother Jones, and she would talk about the hurts that she had experienced in the church. And I would say, Mama, are you still going? I got to keep going to church because that's what Jesus is coming back for. Listen, listen, listen. I got to talk to somebody today. Don't give up on the church. There are people, they got problems, but the church itself belongs to God. Next slide, please. I want to try to get through this today. So the relevant question of today is this. Who hurt you? I want to slow way down because you got to answer this question here. And I want you to know that when you answer that question, who hurt you, it's a name behind your church hurt. Some name, when you think about your church hurt, there's a name connected to it. And I want to tell you, you can't tame it until you name it. Quit trying to act like it don't exist. Quit trying to act like they didn't hurt you. You know it's there, and it's a person's name. You don't have to type it into the chat, but you can at least give me a thumbs up if you know that what I'm saying is true, that there is a name behind your church hurt. The fact that you are experiencing this place of church hurt, and you say there's a name behind it, and somebody gonna get set free today because you've never been forced to confront it. And I want to suggest to you today that as you put a name behind your church hurt, you're going to start seeing some positive steps towards your healing. You can't tame it until you name it. It's another way of saying you can't even begin the healing process until you name that hurt. And usually there's a name behind that church hurt. All right, let's go a little bit further today. So somebody say, Williams, okay, you got me. I give it to you. I never had to experience that before, but yes, you are correct. There is a name. There is someone, when I think about my church hurt, that I automatically say, that this person right here is the reason why I gave up on church. But I got good news for you today, that there is a place of healing for your church hurt. Let's look at it for a moment. Well, here you have it. Can I offer you a resource today? I know it's painful. Oh, I know that when you think about the hurt, your blood pressure actually goes up. I'm talking good to somebody. See, some people act like life is a flowery bed of ease, but behind that smile is someone with a hurt from the church. And I want to talk good to you today, that there is hope even in your hurting. One of the things I want you to take good from this broadcast today, the first thing you have to do is to right size our expectations. What do you mean, Williams? We typically put unrealistic expectations on other people that the people themselves can't even meet. Yes, I'll say it and I'll say it again. When you look at the church, I always like to use Jesus as my example. He had a ragtag band of leaders with him. He knew he had people, traitors like Judas. He knew he had doubters like Thomas. He knew he had deniers like Peter. And so what I'm telling you is, many times the people that you're looking to be perfect cannot be. I said it. Now say it again. That the reality is, sometimes we leave our problems in the world and we come to the church with this expectation that the building is going to be perfect. And can I talk to you for a moment that the reality is, in the church are a lot more people just like you. They're hurting, many of them, and they're seeking some level of healing as well. And can I tell you something? One of the best sermons I like to preach is God's unlikely candidate. The fact that God specializes in using people with spotty passes. Come here, David, in the Bible. The man was a murderer and an adulterer, but the Bible said that David was a man after God's own heart. Come here, Paul. Paul killed Christians, tormented them when they saw and mentioned his name. As a matter of fact, when he went on that missionary journey, they were scared of the man until God knocked him off that beast. Lord have mercy. I want to talk to somebody today that in God's army are people with spotted passes. And I need to talk to somebody today that quit putting expectations in people. I remember in my journey, I met the late Maya Angelou. And we met her at this event, and there was a whole bunch of pastors and preachers there. And we went to go take a picture with her. And she was in a wheelchair. And out of respect, I thought I went up to take a picture with her, and I leaned down so I could kind of be level with her. She told me, "Stand up straight, Reverend. Lean on no man. Trust in God only." I want to talk to somebody today, in the words of the late Maya Angelou. Lean on God only. Put your trust in no man. Because many times what happens is we put our confidence in people only to set ourselves up to get hurt. I said it and I'll say it again, because the reality is we are all a work in progress. Yes, and that's one way for you to end up getting hurt, is to have your expectations so high until when you see the contradiction, your mind can't process it. Yes, people lie in the church. I said it, and I'll say it again. People steal in the church. I'll say it again. People commit all kinds of infractions in the church. But the reality is The church belongs to Jesus. And we are all on a journey trying to get to that promised land. And in the process, we're working, sending up our timber, asking God to help us day by day. I don't know who I'm talking to today. Listen to this. Steve Mansfield. He says, as humans, we are capable of the greatest good and the most disgusting sins. What he says is that these humans are so sophisticated that we are capable of some of the greatest good. Can I talk to you? I go down to the courthouse sometimes, and I have to go down there as a character witness sometimes for people. And I remember going to talk to a judge standing in the courtroom for a person that had summons me down there. They were looking at some serious time. And I said to the judge, Your Honor, I'm not here today to argue on whether or not this young man is innocent or guilty. He's guilty. They all turned around and looked at me. I said, but Your Honor, Thurgood Marshall said that one of the highest qualities of mankind is to look at someone who is guilty and decide to give them another chance. The judge says to me, you have well said, Dr. Williams. And for that reason, he said to the young man, you look at that minister because he's the only reason you're not going behind bars today. Let me tell you, we are capable of some of the greatest good, but don't fool yourself. We are humans and we can do some of the most disgusting things, like looking at someone who has come off the street and deciding that they don't deserve to be in the army of God. Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've been in services and I've opened the doors of the church and somebody come walking down the aisle and some self-serving Christian looking down their nose at this person only to forget where you came from yourself. I want to say today to somebody, you need to the right size your expectations. Yes. To my good friend, Pastor Sellers, always good to see you all the way from the High Point, Thomasville area. I want to talk to you today. Is that one of the best things that's ever happened is that God uses us despite our human flaws. Yes, all throughout history, we know that God uses people throughout our flaws. But we also know that in the church, you can find some disgusting things around people who are disciples for Jesus. And so you take nothing else from this presentation today. Right size, in other words, downsize your expectations of people, because the reality is they're not perfect. And guess what? Neither are you. In the Ministerial Alliance I was part of, this gentleman came and he says he was looking for a church to join. One of the senior ministers said, have you tried X and Y? They called 2 or 3 churches, very prominent churches. And he said, yeah, I tried them, but no, that's not the one. They finally said, well, what you looking for? He said, I'm kind of looking for a church, kind of like, really suit all my needs and kind of like a perfect church. And we kind of looked at each other. I had never heard nobody say that before. And one of the senior ministers said this to him, and I want to repeat this today on this broadcast. He said, young man, when you find that perfect church, it will no longer be perfect when you join it, because you are not perfect yourself. What a profound revelation that sometimes our expectations are so high, it sets us up to get hurt. Next slide, please. I wanted to start this series around spiritual trauma, because ultimately that's what we find is happening in these series, is called spiritual trauma. Next slide, please. And we'll be diving deep into this as we go forward. So when you talk about spiritual trauma, it is the hurt or the impact of things that have happened as a result of your spirituality. And when you have this spiritual trauma, there are some common feelings. And I wanted to talk about just 3 of them today. If you've gone through a traumatic experience, you've been in church and you've got hurt, and it's so bad until you almost just give up on the whole faith thing, you may feel like you were knocked off your feet emotionally and spiritually. This is normal. Did you hear what I said? This is normal. The writer of Psalms 42 tells God it feels like chaos roars at me like a flood. That's Psalms 42. Sometimes people try, but it seems like strong on the outside and hide the chaos they feel on the inside. I want to speak to someone today. This can slow your progress. It's healthy to be honest about how you're feeling, about yourself, about others, and about God. Accepting what has happened will help you to heal. You cannot act like you are a super being. They said it, it hurt you, and as a result, you're trying to get to the healing. And as a matter of fact, that's what we said before. Until you name it, you can't claim it. You have to be honest with yourself. And sometimes you have to be angry. I'm angry at how people can say they serve and love you and can treat your people so bad. Here's a couple of feelings that you may have. When things go wrong, you may look for someone to blame. Like when you go through spiritual trauma, you say, who is it? You can blame yourself or even someone else. This is a way of making sense of what happened, but it's not healthy. Accepting what happened will help you to heal. First step is don't blame yourself or someone else. You have to first accept it for what it is. It happened. I now have to process it so I can start the healing. If others were affected by the trauma event, for example, someone inflicted you in church and it also caused you and your family to stop attending the church, you may feel guilty that you suffered less than they did. Or this is a common response because you're feeling guilty because others are affected by the trauma. Next slide, please. What happened was not your decision. I want you to hear me when I say these words. If you're dealing with the church hurt, God has a purpose for the remainder of the days given to you. Hear me good when I say God cares for you and that he has a purpose. Listen to what David says. When my bones were being formed, carefully but put together in my mother's womb, when I was growing there in secret, you knew that I was there. You saw me before I was born. The days allotted to me had all been recorded in your book before any of them ever began. My friend, God has a purpose for you. And even though you're experiencing church hurt, I want to submit to you that it's all in the master's plan. Look at what Matthew says. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a small coin? Yet not one of them falls to the ground without your Father's knowledge. Even all the hairs on your head are counted. So do not be afraid. You are worth more than many sparrows. I want to talk to somebody today that you're hurt, you're going through a process, but God loves you and he cares for you. Next slide, please. That this brokenness, you may feel thirdly ashamed about the way you're reacting to the trauma. Some have checked out of church and have said some ugly things about the church as a result of checking out. If you need to accept help from others, you may feel embarrassed to be in a position of need. This is especially true if you are used to taking care of your own needs, or if you were usually the one helping others. Remember that it's not your fault you are in this situation. Others like you do not think less of you for having difficulty. And God is not ashamed of you. Allowing others to help you. I want to submit today that you are in the master's plan, and it's okay for you to ask for help. As we try to wrap up my time today, next slide, please. I want to talk to you today about church hurt. I want to leave you with a quote that I found. It says, "You will never heal." And that's what this broadcast is about, trying to move you from the hurt to the healing. You will never heal if you let hurt become your identity. Maddie Montgomery. In essence, what it's saying is that every time someone sees you, they shouldn't identify you with someone who's hurt. But can I talk good to somebody today? That as we close this broadcast today, that God is in the business of taking brokenness and making blessedness in the end. It's a process, my friend. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's disappointing at times. But I want to talk good to somebody. It's all in the master's plan. And even as David said, before you were ever born, God had already numbered your days. My last slide today for you is real simple. I hope you take this quote, and I want you to think about this as we bring our broadcast to a close today. Church hurt. It's what we've been talking about. If being hurt by the church causes you to lose faith in God, then your faith was in people, not in God. I want to ask you today, don't give up on God. Listen, the reality is people are human and they do some stupid things. People are human and they do some just disgusting things. But people are human also, and God can use them to move you through that process of being hurt in the church. That's all I have for you today. I got one more slide for you, and I want to offer you this. This whole broadcast is about one thing, trying to give you a spiritual first aid kit. You've been hurt. You've been devastated. You've experienced some setbacks. And I come today to tell you in my closing today that we're here on these next few sessions to give you a spiritual first aid kit. Stay tuned, my friend, because we're going to help you move from hurt to healing. That's all we have for you today. I want to thank you once again for tuning in. Remember, all of these sessions can be viewed on our YouTube link. I ask you to go there and you can review this one as well as others. Remember to hit the share button. Bless somebody as well. As we leave today, I want to pray with you because I know that this God we talking about, he still is a prayer answering God. God, we thank you now for this time of fellowship and sharing. Bless this viewership. Give them wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And most importantly, the ability to understand that it's all in the master's plan. We give you praise and we celebrate your power because you can do anything but fail. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Listen, until next time, I just ask you to keep the faith and remember that it's all in the master's plan. God bless you.